Welcome, everybody. This is Hugh Massie, the chairman and founder of DNA Behavior International. And today I'm delighted to be hosting another identity conversation. And I have with me Tim Baker, who is the founder of Conscious Wealth. This is a new endeavor for Tim, and it's an evolution from his wealth management business called Tim Monnier Family Office that he's run or had run for the last 39 years. And Tim's extremely experienced at dealing with money, but also very passionate and experienced at dealing with human consciousness, understanding human energy. And he has brought those dimensions to his clients over the past 30 years as well. And so it'd be great to hear what Tim's got to say today about those areas and how we can improve human consciousness. So welcome, Tim.
Thanks for the opportunity to chat with you today.
So Tim, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about your life and career background, how you got to forming Tim Monnier Family Office, and then I think some of the very specialized and unique work that you did with your clients, particularly in the latter years of that business.
Well, I grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia area, and I started playing golf when I was 5, and I went to the University of South Carolina on a golf scholarship. I got married in college, and but still wanted to pursue a pro career. So a year after college, I was doing that. But along the way, my bride said, "Hey, why don't you get a real job?" And so after one of the tournaments that didn't go so well, that hit home to me. Also along the way, I had lost a sponsor for me playing the tour.
Yeah.
And that was in 1981. And I found that, the downturns of the market then created the backing off of the sponsors that I had. And so I saw where, market volatility could create opportunities. And I went into the wealth management field. But February of 81 is when I entered it. We had 10% unemployment, 10% inflation rates, 19.5% 30-year mortgage rates, 21% money market yields. The markets were obviously down and things weren't going well. But I started my career with Prudential Insurance Company. I was a rookie agent of the year in the state of South Carolina and hated my job, but it was a really interesting period of time to enter the industry because in 1981, with soaring interest rates, the investment industry, the insurance industry created a lot of new products back then.
Yeah.
They created indexed annuities based on the interest rate that you can get on your portfolio. They created variable life policies where you could invest in the stock markets and get your cash values to grow in that way. And so it was a great period of time to where I saw all of these new products and services being developed, and I was able to use that knowledge for the rest of my career because they really haven't changed that much since then. I worked with a financial planning firm for 7 years, and then worked with 2 Wall Street firms, Legg Mason, Wood Walker, and Prudential Securities for 9 years before I left the brokerage industry to begin my own firm, wanting to do things my own way. And that's how I found it at that time called Baker Capital Advisors, that then later became Tim Monnier Family Office. And part of that name change was to get my ego out of the work. And I wanted, as I was bringing in colleagues that were starting to build out my vision, I wanted them to feel like they owned the business also. And so yeah. I needed to change that, and so that they could identify with that. And I Wikipedia'd all the nautical terms because that was a theme in our wealth management industry and our business. And I gave my colleagues a list of names, and they came up with Tim Monnier, the English pronunciation Timonier. But timonier is French for the helmsman, one who directs the charted course of a ship to its dark destiny of harbor. And I felt like that's what we were doing and working with these families on their journey. But in a sublime way, my colleagues thought it was a little bit funny because Timonier is spelled Timonier. my name phonetically is still in the name
Yes.
Team Monnier. And so that was an interesting process to go through. But that's where I got to in 1997 and beginning Team Monnier.
So what did you learn, Tim, out of golf for business? Because becoming a pro golfer is no easy thing to do.
Well, golf to me is more pure than any religion.
Yeah.
You're out there by yourself. You can't blame somebody for a bad shot. If what happens in the environment is going on, you can't be mad at the environment. You have to learn how to respond to your environment. And that's where I also learned, that's also a human condition, because most people operate out of the reptilian mind, fight, flight, or fear. And when you're reacting to your environment controls you. You're making decisions that you haven't really given a lot of thoughtful process to.
Yeah.
But when you respond to your environment, now you control your environment. And so, golf has lessons in that way that taught first and foremost integrity and morality. What guy running down second base on a baseball field slides in and the guy tags him and the umpire says, "You're safe," and the runner gets up and says, "No, he tagged me out"? Well, in golf, people are calling the rules on themselves, even when somebody doesn't see an infraction to the rule.
Yeah.
And when you're working with a family and people and their money, you better have integrity. You better have morality behind your efforts. You need to be a fiduciary in that role and working with people. You can't be a salesman. And you have to eliminate all those conflicts of interest. And so golf taught me how to deal with the environment, how to deal with different courses, different situations, and then how to navigate and how to honor the integrity of the game and the equipment that you use.
And I suppose there's a relationship, Tim, to volatility. You came into the financial services industry at an incredibly volatile time, and people have to be able to respond to that.
That's right. And so most people don't understand capitalism. So I've just finished writing a book called Mastering Financial Terrorism. And so it's based on a couple of principles. And one is we have to understand as consumers in this system of Wall Street, Bank Street, Insurance Street, even Legal Street and CPA Street, that they understand the consumer's mind and how it works. They understand how we're programmed coming into this world as a human being. And they use that knowledge to manipulate the consumer.
Yeah.
And so I call it Financial Street. They're the puppeteers, consumers are the puppets. And so that's the first order of recognizing why people aren't having good outcomes with their wealth management services, is just understanding who we're doing business with. It's a muddied landscape at its very best. So understand that, and later I describe how you build a different model from that. And then the other aspect of money management, wealth management, is understanding capitalism. And most people think of capitalism as these businesses, these intermediaries that we're doing business with, the Merrill Lynch's and the insurance companies and the banks, the Wells Fargo. That's not capitalism. They're the intermediary between capitalism and the consumer. Yeah. Once we understand capitalism is really just the nature of how we exchange goods and services among each other, and just break it down to the bare essence of that, you can see that with almost 8 billion people, that people are going to wake up each morning with wants and needs that are going to want to buy these things. There's going to be people that wake up each morning that want to create these products and services, And it's that exchange that we participate in. And it's just, we're so fortunate that we can do that through this thing called publicly traded companies. And that's simply what capitalism is. And as long as you're doing business with companies that have good management, with products and services needed by the public, that's done under the guise of integrity and morality, it's going to continue to expand. Now, this giant economic plumbing system will have imbalances from time to time. Human nature won't act quite right all the time.
Yeah.
But we will, and we have always gone through temporary declines in this permanent uptrend of economic appreciation and human development. And so once you understand how capitalism, what capitalism is and how you can participate in it, then you're able to endure some of these temporary declining periods that we'll inevitably go through and will always go through.
But you've got to understand, it seems like you've got to understand capitalism for what it is in a structural sense. But also, I think part of what you're doing in your work is understanding your human energy, your own personal consciousness levels to be able to deal with what the capitalism actually brings. Am I right?
That's right. And so, traditionally what we've done in our system of wealth management is we'll have 4 or 5 different investment managers. Maybe we even as a family are managing some small pie of that, part of that pie. We'll collect 4, 5, 6 different insurance policies through the years. And we've never had that person talk to the estate planning attorney. We'll have a CPA, but they've never talked to the investment guy or gal, except at tax time when there's a missing 1099.
Yeah.
Less than 30% of us actually have a financial plan done. Less than 1% do this every year and keep track of that. And certainly nobody's talked to the family psychiatrist. And so physically, we run around taking the most time possible, garnering all of these services, and then paying the most for those services. And nobody's talking to each other. In fact, if anything, they talk about each other because any one of those parties wants to be the man or woman in charge of the family mission statement. And so they're usually talking against this guy or that girl. And at any moment in time, 2 guys look not so smart and get fired only to see a market cycle or tax law changes come about. Now the smart guys don't look smart anymore. And so they get fired. So with this lack of communication and talking against each other with your advisors, the family goes through their whole journey, not trusting in the system, not trusting in who they're hiring. And so the way to overcome that is to turn that model upside down and to replicate for anyone in the United States the model that the super wealthy have always used as a process. And that is to have a team of professionals working for them under their philosophies, under their mission statement. If they need another specialist to come in to work with that team, they go bring them in and indoctrinate them under the philosophy statement and get the work done. And so that's what I was able to do in creating, that was my vision with T. Monnier Family Office, to go down market, to work with families where you've either eliminated the conflict of interest or you fully disclosed if there's a conflict of interest involved and advice being given. And having this entire team of advisors, attorneys, CPAs, insurance specialists, investment specialists, a planner, an Ayurvedic practitioner or shaman to be there to work for the interest of the family. Now, collegially, it's really great because that team is there in the same office space every day, talking about client situations. They can be challenging each other, but at the end of the day, it's for the best interest of the family. So that's what a fiduciary is acting in the interest of their client, keeping that ahead of their own interest.
Yeah, I think that's that was a sort of framework that I started to build in Australia in my wealth management business as well. And in some ways is to level the playing pitch of all of this as well, because the poor old client, even if they're wealthy, they're still vulnerable to the service providers, and to be able to have a structure like that where there's a team working totally for them on their side with no conflicts is important. But still, they have to make decisions about what they want, don't they? And so this human consciousness piece, I think would be good for us to explore a little bit more in how you got the clients to, make better decisions for themselves in response to life and market events going up and down.
Well, I think you solved that problem with your body of work. Now, it's really interesting. When I first got in the business, and still today, FINRA has this rule where whether you're working with a broker at a bank or a financial advisor, they want you to know the client.
Yeah.
And it was always so comical to see that there was like 5 questions that would help you know your client, or 10 questions to know your client. And it was questions to the clients like, what's your time horizon? What's your return risk tolerance? As if people know what that is. I mean, people really don't know their tolerance until they go through a market decline. But it's so funny that it was centered around this risk tolerance questionnaire, and it's really only a piece of paper for CYA of the financial institutions you're doing business with. It was for their compliance departments that allow them to do business with the client. Well, it's comical in that, one, you're asking the advisor to know the client when the client doesn't even know themselves.
Yeah.
So you solve that problem through your human archetype assessment tools.
Yeah.
Clients are answering these questions. They're not direct questions about their returns or risk tolerance. You're getting the essence of how they're programmed in their natural state, from coming into the world through the womb and then experiencing their environment for the first 7 years of their life. People, until you're age 7, your mind is in this alpha, theta, delta state. It's a sponge, and everything that you're experiencing in your environment, you can't say no to. You accept as your truth.
Yeah.
And then when we get to age 7, now we've developed the beta mind, the low, mid, and high beta level of the mind. Now we can say no when Dad says to us as we're trying to hit that plastic golf ball in the backyard, and he says, you're not ever going to be able to play golf very well. You can say, no, I am. But until then, you've accepted all of the world as your truth, your environment. And so you expose who these people are through the type of questions that you ask them that reveal so much truth about the person in front of us as an advisor to them. And when it gets to points about you're revealing someone spends too much money, or they're not have a propensity to save, you know what? The advisor's not telling the client that, because that becomes confrontational.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, I mean, some people will be open to it and go, oh, you're right. But that can create a confrontation with someone if you're an advisor doing that. And what's the beauty about your study and your work that you did is this person's telling on themselves.
Yeah.
The advisor doesn't have to say, I think you spend too much money. They told the advisor through the study that they spend too much money.
Yeah.
Or they're not saving enough. And so first, what we do is we get to know the client very deep and wide through the human archetype assessment tools. And I'll also layer on top of that another impactful thing that I created called a genogram. But through those two tools, Now I know that client so that I can step into their shoes with this team that I have and can best achieve their goals in their life with our industry experience and knowledge. Because now we know them. That's knowing your client.
Yeah, and it helps the whole team though, because it's there, it's documented, it can be made available through the technology to everybody on the team, and it levels the playing pitch. And
so what you have to do from the very beginning and working with people, I think, which I call the discovery phase, is you have to start building trust right away.
Yeah.
Authenticity, trust. So the first thing I would tell clients as soon as they came in, sat down in our conference room, and we had coffee and whatnot to get set up, I said, the first thing I want to let you know is you have privacy of your information in these walls. Only me and my team will know anything about what we're talking about today. What I want to also have is transparency about everything who you are and what you're wanting to do and what you've done. And we're going to be the same way. We're going to be totally transparent of how we work with you and how our advice is given. We're not going to hold any judgment over anything you've ever done or ever want to do in your life. Without those three elements in place, you can never get to the place of trust. And without trust, you don't have a relationship. You have a transaction. You have an accident looking for a place to happen, and then both parties are going out the door. And I want to at least set up the chance, because it doesn't always happen this way, but I at least want to have the foundation where you can have a lifetime relationship, actually a multi-general relationship with the folks that you're working with. So I set the stage for that because we want to have a sanctuary for people to be in, to feel at ease, at peace, to open up, to say anything they want to say. I can't tell you how many times through the years, box of Kleenexes came in real handy, and I just met these people, and we had this 3-hour beautiful conversation about, who they were in their lives. And a part of that is developing the genogram, having the human archetype assessment. When they walk in the door, I know more about them usually than they know about themselves. A lot of times they'll bring their assessment with them, and they'll say, I'm not that biased down here. And usually what happens is the spouse is, yeah, you are.
Yeah.
And then we get into our genogram that we go through with people, because now I understand that all of life is a fractal. This is repeating patterns of information, infinite repeating patterns of information. You see it in the cosmos, you see it in human nature, and you see it in the behavior patterns of people. And when you do a genogram of a family and you're putting up there the grandparents or the parents, if they're too far removed, and then you're putting over there the siblings and the two people sitting in front of you, and then the kids. And then you start asking questions about the parents and grandparents, about their health, their marriages, their occupations, the economic conditions that you grew up in when you were young. A lot of people can grow up in wealthy conditions but feel poor. People in poor conditions can grow up and feel abundant.
Yeah.
So we're asking about the economic conditions. We're putting the siblings on there, and also getting a description of their profiles. And I didn't know that it was that important in the beginning when I was there, but through the years, then I could see a lot of times people, that's where money leaks are. A family says, I'm spending this much money. You go, no, you're not. And they go, yes, I am. I go, well, there's another $3,000 going somewhere every month. And they go, yeah, her sister, we're helping now with her kids because of these situations. So when you get that on paper, and then you get involved in asking about the money scripts that they learned when they were young. Money doesn't grow on trees. You don't want to be an orange grower if you're having that belief in your system. Yeah. You got to work hard for your money. Or, money comes to me easy and everything turns to gold when I invest. Now, these are money scripts, but these are things that people grow up with and hold on to and then live with. And then I want to find out what kind of money scripts are they telling their children and their grandchildren about this. And then ultimately I get to the point where I want to know how they feel about money. And I just impromptu one year, several years ago, I was with this medical group having a luncheon with 14 executives. None of these were doctors of the practice. I had been working with this practice for 15 years or 20 years, and I handled their retirement plan, worked a lot with the private practice docs. But to this day, it was just with the staff and the office people. Now, these people made anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000 in income. And this is one of it, usually they have a spouse. So these are pretty good incomes living in America. But I just, out of the blue, I said, all right, we're going to go through a little exercise here. I said, I want you to get settled in your body. I want you to take a couple of deep breaths. And then I'm going to and close your eyes. And then I'm going to say a word to you. And when I say it, I want you to feel in your body, sensate in your body where you're feeling this reaction or response that you have to this word. And then we're going to come out and I'm going to ask you some questions. And so they took 3 deep breaths, they got settled, and I said the word money. And so I said, before you open your eyes, I said, I'd like to know whether you felt a positive, a negative, or a neutral sensation when I said the word money. So how many people out of 14 do you think had a positive sensation?
1 or 2.
Neutral. 1 or 2?
Yeah.
All 14 had a negative sensation in their body about money.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought there might have been somebody who just recently had a good experience because they'd sold a business or something like that.
So they're describing their relationship with money. If you're having a negative relationship with money, it's like having your partner or spouse. If you're not loving them and you have a negative sensation to them, you're just another accident looking for a place to happen. And that's where we are in this culture. I mean, we represent 4.5% of the world's population. We've created 55% of the world's business valuation. And PBS did this documentary a couple of years ago saying the retirement dilemma. Now, how can this be? Now, it's not all associated with the way the financial system delivers this or how we feel about money, but that's a pretty good part of it. And it gets deeper than that. And perhaps we'll chat about some of those things sometime, but.
Yeah, it seems like that question is really the setup for what you're doing now in the post-T. Monnier life with conscious wealth.
Well, so that's funny that you mentioned it because I've gone to a lot of spiritual retreats through the years and other kind of retreats as well. And I've been to India and Australia, your homeland, and Chile and Costa Rica and in the United States as well. And so some of these retreats are a week long or more. And I never ask anybody when I meet them, what do you do for a living? But usually after 3 or 4 days, when somebody's around you, eventually they'll come up to you and go, well, what do you do for a living? And so I'll talk to them about my work in wealth management. And they go, how can you be such a spiritual guide in the money management business? And I say, well, that tells me more about you than it does me. Because really, to me, money is just a neutral tool. It's energy. It's a neutral tool. Just like nuclear power, you can either heat homes with it or blow up people with it. And it's the character revealed through the use of the tool that makes it good or bad. We don't have a bad political system. We have bad characters in the political system.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about.
So what we have to do with all of this is develop a good character within us.
Yeah, it's all about how money is channeled, I think. And that you're right. And that's what I would say is money is an energy. It's a stored energy, and it's a matter of, are you going to release it for for good or bad in the context of your life or in other people's lives?
Well, energy is like, our money is like blood. So, I mean, you don't want it to get stuck somewhere and where it clumps up. That's portending a heart attack. And when you put your money into dead assets like cash investments or the mattress, not a lot of good can come out of that. You've got to have it in a system, participating with capitalism, sharing of goods and services around the world. That's flow. That's getting the maximum result from your energy of money.
Yeah, what I say is you've got to have the financial flexibility in your life to be able to allow it to flow. Otherwise, it's just probably flowing to debt and causing a congestion that basically, as you say, gives you a heart attack or chokes you up. And you've got to have the human capital wisdom to be able to know that and what to do with that, and to recognize that money is an energy force. And I know, Tim, when you talk about spirituality, you're not necessarily talking about religion. You're talking about getting back to nature's source with this.
Yes.
And I think that's very powerful. So, I'll look forward to seeing you as a conscious wealth leader in the future, how we can transform more lives from the inside out, with this message.
Well, it's, most people think that, they accumulate all this stuff because they'll provide more security for them. That's outer security. Really, the true security for someone is their inner securities and the inner understanding of who they are beyond this physical body, understanding they have this beautiful non-physical body connected to the soul, connected to spirit. And once you get that connection, when you make that veil so thin between the human experience and the soul, that's where magic happens, synchronicity happens. That's where joy is. That's the elimination of suffering. That's flow. Flow and happiness. And we've got to get people to be integrated with money, and you can't have 14 out of 14 people saying it's negative, because that must mean it's not integrated. Right.
If they feel that way. But I think it would be very interesting to see how you can step into some of these environments that you've been in where human consciousness is getting transformed, and ask that question, or put the word down, money, and see whether we can get more people to have a positive experience out of it, transform their life, their health, be looking as good as you are. Because that's the litmus test. And as someone said to me yesterday, part of his measurement stick of life is, are my children happy, and are they good human beings, and what are they doing? And that's all part of it too. It's very interesting.
Well, you made a key point there a little while ago, wisdom. And that is, we're in this age of information now, and we have this fire hose of information coming out at us. And so that's where you see a lot of people in the wealth management space being called do-it-yourselfers, and they're not having such a good outcome. And the reason is because access to information doesn't equal the wisdom to know what to do with it. And what people are fighting against is their subconscious conditioning, this 50 million year old reptilian brain that is always reacting in this fight, flight, or freeze state. And when you're reacting to your world and the world of money, you're not usually going to have a lot of good outcomes.
Yeah, and you're going to be bringing blind spots to it, and your own emotions.
Right.
And that's, another, given the volatility of markets, and we're going to see a lot of that in the future, it's going to be hard for any one person to be able to make wise decisions by themselves, I think.
Right. Well, I'll leave with this. There's one other question that I always would have in my discovery meeting interviews, goal setting, and that's, what brings you joy?
Yep.
I'm asking that looking for hopefully two responses to that. Usually people will say, oh, My grandkids bring me joy. My vacation home brings me joy. My horses bring me joy. Flying a plane on the weekend brings me joy. So that gives me some information about what their interests are. But really what I'm really hoping to hear from that person's answer or reply is, I am joy.
Yeah, interesting.
And out of that joy comes a reflection back to me, all of these other things.
Because
But
that's then
because you don't have the joy of it, the plane, or you haven't reached the vacation home status yet, you don't have joy. I mean, it has to work from the inside out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good message to leave on, because it's about people's being at the end of the day. And you've got to be in the place of joy, not in the search of it. And that's what we need to do. And money is really a sideshow to all of that.
Yeah. And as we said earlier with each other, we're called human beings, not human doings.
Yeah. And I think that's a great message to leave everybody with. You are a human being, not a human doing. And I hope we can get, Tim, a lot more people to that place. So thank you.
Well, thanks for this wonderful time today.
It's
and
been
look forward to
fantastic.
seeing you again soon.
You will.